I'm sitting at my desk, the morning sun spilling across the cream-colored walls of my apartment, the soft hum of the city below seeping through the window. My coffee cup leaves a faint ring on the mahogany table, and I notice the chipped nail polish on my right hand. A small imperfection, but it somehow feels symbolic today. My phone buzzes, another notification, but I hesitate before looking. It's a message from my sister, the kind that always carries just a hint of trouble. "Did you see what Mom said about the hospital incident?" My chest tightens. The words are a dagger wrapped in silk. I thought that chapter of my life was closed, buried somewhere beneath late nights, business deals, and carefully curated Instagram posts that show just enough, but never the whole story. I run my hand along the silk of my blouse, feeling the smooth fabric, trying to steady my thoughts. Memories hit me like a freight train. Hospital room lights glaring against the polished floor, the cold metal of the side table, the sterile smell mingling with the faint scent of antiseptic soap, and the one person I trusted most, reaching for something that wasn't hers to take. The theft of $68,000 worth of jewelry. My jewelry. From my hospital room. The police inventory had been brutal, a clinical recounting of every missing piece, every scratched surface, every broken trust. And now, years later, a simple message threatens to pull me back into that storm. I exhale slowly. Time to face it again, but this time on my terms. Years ago, I was a different person, softer, more trusting, and painfully eager to be accepted. I remember lying in the hospital bed, the sterile sheets pulled tight around me, feeling fragile and exposed. My wedding day had just passed, and I should have been floating on a cloud of happiness, but instead, I was haunted by the tension that had been simmering between me and my mother-in-law, Diane. Diane had always had this way of looking at me that made me feel like I wasn't enough, too quiet, too ambitious, too different. That day, as I rested my swollen feet on the hospital recliner, I noticed her hovering near the side table. I smiled, hoping to bridge the distance, but something in her eyes froze me. She wasn't visiting to support me. She was assessing, calculating. When I glanced down, a pang of horror shot through me. My jewelry box, the one I had brought from home with delicate care, was missing. Not just a necklace or a pair of earrings, $68,000 worth of memories, heirlooms, and gifts vanished in a heartbeat. My heart raced, my throat tightened, and my hands trembled as I tried to comprehend the betrayal. I thought of my grandmother, the woman who had always whispered strength into my ears. "Olivia, sometimes the people closest to you'll try to dim your light. Keep it burning anyway." Her words echoed as I struggled to stand firm, to demand respect and honesty in a room that felt suddenly like a cage. The fight that followed with Diane was icy, surgical. She denied everything with that infuriating calm, and the nurses exchanged uncomfortable glances. I remember gripping the sheets, my pulse hammering, my voice cracking as I tried to assert myself, trying to make her see that I wouldn't be intimidated. The sting of being dismissed, the humiliation in front of strangers, it all coalesced into a silent vow. I would not stay powerless. By the end of that day, after the police took their inventory and the hospital staff whispered condolences, I made a choice. I would no longer let others dictate my worth or access to my own life. That bed, those sterile walls, and that stolen jewelry became a symbol of everything I refused to surrender again. It was the first spark of independence, the first moment I decided that my future would be entirely my own. After that hospital room ordeal, I left the sterile halls behind, but carried the memory like a scar that refused to fade. I moved into a small apartment in downtown Chicago, far from the watchful eyes of my family. The city buzzed with energy, a chaotic symphony that somehow soothed me. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. "Keep your light burning, Olivia. No one can steal what you've earned." I threw myself into work, starting modestly as a freelance interior designer. My mentor, Rachel Monroe, a seasoned designer known for transforming overlooked spaces into luxurious havens, saw potential in me I hadn't yet recognized in myself. "You've got vision, Olivia," she said on our first meeting, scanning my portfolio. But more importantly, you've got courage. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Her belief was like sunlight through a stormy sky. The beginning was brutal. I remember nights hunched over my drafting table, fingers stiff from sketching, eyelids heavy with exhaustion. Self-doubt gnawed at me. Was I truly talented, or was I chasing an illusion? The rejections piled up, clients questioning my experience, competitors dismissing me as naive. But each small win, landing my first paying client, receiving my first glowing testimonial, felt monumental. The tiniest sparks of success fueled me through the nights when the city lights outside blurred into a haze. I learned to play the game quietly. Every accomplishment was private, every triumph understated. My family thought I was still struggling, still fragile, still dependent. I let them believe it. On social media, I posted minimal updates, a coffee in hand, a brief smile in a sunlit room, nothing that revealed the empire I was slowly building behind closed doors. Months turned into years. I expanded my clientele, took on larger projects, and invested wisely. I transformed my small apartment into a reflection of my aesthetic, soft yet commanding, understated yet powerful. The city that had once intimidated me now felt like a partner in my ascent. Through it all, I carried the hospital room incident not as a burden, but as motivation. Every project, every design choice, every careful step toward independence was a silent rebellion against the woman who had once believed she could diminish me. I was no longer the timid girl in the hospital bed. I was Olivia Bennett, a woman who had clawed her way to financial independence, professional respect, and emotional resilience, all while keeping the memory of betrayal as a secret talisman of strength. And though I had built walls around my private victories, I knew that one day the truth would surface. Not for revenge, not for humiliation, but as a testament to the life I had claimed for myself, the power I had quietly nurtured, and the woman I had become. The invitation was simple, almost innocuous, a dinner at my penthouse apartment, where my parents and Diane, the mother-in-law who had once stolen my jewelry, were expected. I had rehearsed my calm, polished smile, the tone of my voice, the way my eyes would meet theirs without flinching. Every detail of this evening was deliberate. When they arrived, I guided them into the living room, letting them take in the space before speaking a word. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Chicago's skyline, the city lights glimmering like scattered jewels, almost mocking in their brilliance. Expensive art adorned the walls, pieces I had painstakingly collected over the years, yet everything was arranged with understated elegance, a reflection of careful curation, much like my life. Diane's eyes flickered over the space, her expression a mixture of curiosity and judgment. "This is impressive," she said, though the edge in her tone betrayed her confusion. I poured coffee, the rich aroma filling the room, and gestured for everyone to sit. I let them absorb the details, the subtle silk cushions, the handcrafted table, the shelves lined with books and awards. Every element told a story of success, independence, and quiet triumph. Finally, I spoke. My voice was measured, but carried the weight of years of struggle and determination. I imagine some of you expected to see me struggling, still reliant, still small, I said, letting the words linger. But that version of me no longer exists. The truth is, I've built the life entirely my own. I own my work, my successes, and yes, my belongings. All of it. A pause. Diane's jaw tightened. My parents exchanged glances, their faces a mix of awe and disbelief. I continued, letting the details sink in. The jewelry that went missing from my hospital room? It was more than just adornments. It was a symbol of trust, and when that trust was broken, I decided I would never let anyone dictate my worth again. Today, I'm the CEO of my own design firm, with projects across the country. My net worth reflects the life I've built, not given, not borrowed, not inherited. The room went silent. Diane's lips parted slightly, her carefully maintained composure cracking for the first time. My parents looked at me like they were seeing a stranger, yet someone they should have known all along. You see, I said, letting the words land, I never wanted revenge. I wanted to rise, quietly, deliberately, without anyone's permission. And I have. Every choice, every challenge, every sleepless night led me here. I could see the guilt in Diane's eyes, the realization that she had underestimated me, betrayed me, and now confronted a woman who could no longer be intimidated or manipulated. The power shift was undeniable. For a moment, I allowed myself a small, private smile, savoring the victory not as vindictive triumph, but as a celebration of resilience. This confrontation wasn't about shaming anyone, it was about demonstrating what had been taken from me and showing that I had reclaimed it with interest. I poured another cup of coffee, the steam curling upward like a quiet reminder. I had survived, I had thrived, and I had done it entirely on my own terms. The world, and those who once doubted me, were finally seeing the full measure of Olivia Bennet. I watched Diane fidget in the armchair, her polished hands betraying the nerves she tried to hide. For years, she had controlled, judged, and underestimated me. But tonight, the balance had shifted. I had the upper hand, and I intended to use it wisely. I'm not here to punish anyone, I began, my voice calm but firm, but I am here to set terms, conditions for how we move forward. Because the past can't simply be erased, but the future can be shaped differently. My parents nodded cautiously, sensing the seriousness behind my words. Diane, however, bristled, though I could see the flicker of recognition. She knew she had crossed a line. First, I said, trust has to be rebuilt. That means honesty in every interaction, no exceptions. Any further attempts at manipulation or deceit will end contact, permanently. I let the weight of that hang in the room, letting it sink into their minds. Second, I continued, I want to see growth, not just in words but in actions. Pursue your dreams, take responsibility for your lives, and stop relying on others to fix what you've neglected. Diane's lips pressed into a thin line, but I didn't falter. I was unwavering. Third, I added, softer now but still resolute, I will offer guidance, support where appropriate, but only if boundaries are respected. I care, but my care does not mean I will accept old patterns. I've earned my independence, and I won't compromise it. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the city outside. I could see my parents exchanging glances, a mixture of relief and apprehension. Diane's posture softened slightly, her eyes reflecting the first hints of humility. I'm giving all of you a choice, I said, letting my gaze sweep across the room. You can stay in the old patterns of blame and control, or you can step into a future where respect, accountability, and love coexist. I've already chosen my path. You now have the opportunity to choose yours. There was tension, yes, but also a strange calm, a recognition that this was not just about the stolen jewelry or past betrayals. It was about emotional growth, about redefining relationships, about reclaiming power without cruelty. I wanted them to understand that my strength did not come from resentment. It came from clarity, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to myself. I ended with a final, firm statement. From this moment forward, interactions will be measured by honesty and respect. The rest, healing, trust, love, can follow if you're willing to meet me halfway. As I sipped my coffee, I noticed Diane's fingers unclenching, a small but significant shift. The power was mine, yes, but now it was also an invitation for them to rise, to change, to finally see me not as the timid woman they once thought I was, but as the force of nature I had become. In the weeks that followed, subtle changes began to ripple through our family. Diane reached out, not with excuses, but with a tentative willingness to listen. My parents began showing more curiosity about my work, asking questions I hadn't expected them to, and doing so with genuine interest rather than judgment. It wasn't immediate perfection, but it was movement, a sign that growth was possible. I often found myself returning to that hospital memory, not with anger, but with clarity. The bed where I had felt fragile, the side table that had held my stolen treasures, the sterile smell of antiseptic, They all became symbols not of betrayal, but of resilience. I had carried that pain, yes, but it had shaped me into someone stronger, wiser, and unapologetically independent. One evening, I took out the silver locket my grandmother had given me years ago, the one she had whispered about trust and strength into. I held it in my hand and felt a connection to the younger Olivia, the one trembling in the hospital bed, and to the woman I had become, standing tall in my penthouse overlooking the city. That locket had witnessed the full arc of my journey: vulnerability, determination, triumph. I realized something profound. Life doesn't always give closure neatly or on its own timeline. Sometimes you have to create it. I had chosen my path deliberately, with courage and patience. I had transformed betrayal into motivation, silence into strategy, and fear into empowerment. Now, when I think of Diane and the stolen jewelry, it's no longer a source of anger. It's a reminder. A reminder that I am capable of reclaiming everything that was ever taken from me, not just in material terms, but in confidence, dignity, and self-worth. I look out at the city skyline, sipping my evening tea, and I allow myself a small, contented smile. I am Olivia Bennett, resilient, powerful, and unafraid. And for the first time, I feel completely at peace with the past, confident in the present, and excited for the future. The journey wasn't easy. The theft, the betrayal, the long years of building a life on my own, they all left marks. But every mark tells a story of survival, growth, and triumph. And I know this, with unwavering certainty. No one will ever steal my light again.